The younger Jedi, the one who had stuck him in here, didn't like him much as it was. The Jedi would like him a whole lot less if he caught Jar Jar sneaking out of this room. Explosions sounded close by the transport. Cannon fire. The ship rocked in response to a series of near misses. Jar Jar looked about wildly, suddenly not liking where he was at all. Then the running lights began to flicker, and the transport shook violently. Jar Jar moaned and crouched down in a corner. More explosions sounded, and the craft was buffeted from side to side. "We doomed," the frightened Gungan muttered. "'Tis bad business, this." Abruptly, the ship began to spin as if caught in a whirlpool. Jar Jar cried out, fastening his arms about a strut to keep from being thrown against the walls. The lights in the compartment all came on, and the droids were abruptly activated. One by one, they began to whir and beep. Released from their restraints, they rolled out of their racks toward an airlock at one end of the compartment. All but the red R2, who rolled directly into a wall and fell over, more parts tumbling out. The R2 unit, painted blue, paused as it motored by its red counterpart, then charged past Jar Jar, giving out a loud screech that caused the Gungan to jerk away in fright. One after another, the 4 R2 units entered the airlock lift and were sucked up toward the top of the ship. Left behind in the storage compartment with the droid he had unwittingly sabotaged, Jar Jar Binks moaned in despair. Obi-Wan Kenobi had just re-entered the transport's cockpit when explosions began to buffet the ship. He could see a huge Trade Federation battleship looming ahead through the viewport, cannons firing. The Queen's transport was rocked so violently by the blasts that it was thrown from its trajectory. Ric Olié's gloved hands were locked onto the steering grips, fighting to bring the slender craft back into line. "We should abort, sir," the pilot shouted at Qui-Gon, who was braced at his side, eyes fixed on the battleship. "Our deflector shields can't withstand much more of this." "Stay on course," the Jedi Master ordered calmly. He glanced down at the controls. "You have a cloaking device." "This is not a warship," Captain Panaka snapped, looking angry and betrayed. "We have no weapons, Ambassador. We're a non-violent people, which is why the Trade Federation was brave enough to attack us in the first place." A series of explosions jarred the Nubian, and the lights on the control panel flickered weakly. An alarm sounded, shrill and angry. The transport shuddered, its power drive stalling momentarily in a high-pitched whine. "No weapons," Qui-Gon Jinn breathed. Obi-Wan was next to him, feeling the weight of the other's gaze as it shifted to find him, steady and unwavering. One hand settled on Ric Olié's shoulder. "The Trade Federation uses pulsar tracking for its weapons. Spin the ship. It will make it difficult for them to get a reading on us." The pilot nodded, flipped a series of levers, and put the Nubian into a slow spin. Ahead, the battleship filled the viewport, then lost focus. The Queen's transport accelerated, racing toward the enemy craft, whipping past towers and gun ports, bays and stabilizers, speeding down an alleyway of jagged metal protrusions and cannon fire. A laser bolt hammered into them, causing sparks and smoke to explode from one panel, sending the ship reeling. For a brief moment, they were tumbling out of control. Then Ric Olié pulled back hard on the controls, and the hull of the battleship receded. "Something's wrong," the pilot announced quietly, fighting the steering, feeling the ship shudder beneath. "Shields are down." They continued to spin, to hug the cavernous shell of the Trade Federation battleship, so close that the larger guns were rendered useless and only the smaller could chance firing at them. But without shields, even a glancing hit could be disastrous. "Sending out the repair crew," Olié shouted, and flipped a lever. On the view screen, an airlock snapped open, and one by one a series of astromech droids popped out of the hatch and onto the transport's hull. The transport straightened and leveled out, and the spinning stopped. The droids motored swiftly across the hull, seeking out the damage as Ric Olié hugged the battleship's shadow in an effort to protect them. But now there was a new threat. Unable to bring the weapons of their warship to bear in an effective manner, the Trade Federation Command dispatched a squad of starfighters. Small, sleek robot attack ships, they consisted of twin compartments attached to a rounded, swept-back head. As they roared out of the battleship bays, their compartments opened into long slits that exposed their laser guns. Down the length of the mothership they tore, seeking out the Queen's transport. Fast and maneuverable, they had no trouble working close to the battleship's hull. In seconds, they were on top of the transport, weapons firing. Ric Olié struggled to find cover and gain speed. 2 of the R2 units were blown away, one on a direct hit, the second when its hold on the transport hull was shattered. On the view screen, the blue R2 unit could be seen working furiously to connect a series of wires exposed by a damaged hull plate. Laser fire lanced all around it, but it continued its effort without stopping. The 4th droid, working close by, disappeared in a cloud of shattered metal and brilliant fire. Now only the blue unit remained, still busy amid the onslaught of Trade Federation starfighters. Something changed on the cockpit display, and Ric Olié gave a shout of approval. "The shields are up! That little droid did it!" He jammed the thrusters all the way forward, and the transport rocketed away from both the battleship and the starfighters, leaving the Trade Federation blockade and the planet of Naboo behind. The lone R2 unit turned and motored back into the airlock and disappeared from view. When they were well away from any Trade Federation presence, Ric Olié made a thorough check of the controls, assessing their damage, trying to determine what was needed. Obi-Wan sat next to him in the co-pilot seat, lending help. Qui-Gon and Captain Panaka stood behind them, awaiting their report. The Queen and the rest of the Naboo had been secured in other chambers. Ric Olié shook his head doubtfully. "We can't go far. The hyperdrive is leaking." Qui-Gon Jinn nodded. "We'll have to land somewhere to make repairs to the ship. What's out there?" Ric Olié punched in a star chart, and they hunched over the monitor, studying it. "Here, Master," Obi-Wan said, his sharp eyes picking out the only choice that made any sense. "Tatooine. It's small, poor, and out of the way. It attracts little attention. The Trade Federation has no presence there." "How can you be sure?" Captain Panaka asked quickly. Qui-Gon glanced at him. "It's controlled by the Hutts." Panaka started in alarm. "The Hutts?" "It's risky," Obi-Wan agreed, "but there's no reasonable alternative." Captain Panaka was not convinced. "You can't take Her Royal Highness there. The Hutts are gangsters and slavers. If they discovered who she was—" "It would be no different than if we landed on a planet in a system controlled by the Trade Federation," Qui-Gon interrupted. "Except the Hutts aren't looking for the Queen, which gives us an advantage." The Queen's head of security started to say something more, then thought better of it. He took a deep breath instead, frustration etched on his smooth, dark face, and turned away. Qui-Gon Jinn tapped Ric Olié on the shoulder. "Set course for Tatooine."